My name is Miss Van Sant, and today we are going to look at an artifact box about ancient Egypt. If you notice, my artifact box is completely covered in sandpaper. That's to represent the fact that Egypt is predominantly made up of deserts full of sand. If we look at the top of the box, you see 3 items. This first item over here is the outline of Egypt. The blue paper in the middle represents the Nile River. We will quickly learn throughout our artifact box the importance the Nile River had on ancient Egyptians. The last item on the top is a tomb. We will also learn the importance the afterlife had on the religious people of ancient Egypt. The first item we are going to explore is the pharaoh's headdress. Ancient Egypt was a monarchy and it was ruled by a pharaoh. Simply, a pharaoh is like a king. He was the one in charge of the whole country and ruled the whole land. He had a troop of men to help him out though. This troop of men included army, police, priests, nobles, and his vizier. The vizier was the right-hand man to the pharaoh. He was the one that would go out and keep tabs on the whole country and report back to the pharaoh daily on the happenings. Ancient Egypt's social system was set up kind of like a pyramid, where the pharaoh was at the top, the vizier was the second from the top, and then you had people like noblemen and priests and the army, and then at the bottom were slaves and farmers. They were the least important people in the country at the time. Unlike many ancient civilizations, women actually were very important parts to ancient Egypt. They were able to own property, inherit property and money, and even trade and sell on the market. In fact, the law system of ancient Egypt is based on a goddess named Ma'at. Ma'at was the goddess of common sense and understanding the difference between right and wrong. Because of this, when people would go to court, all people were ruled the same. However, when somebody would receive a consequence in the court, oftentimes their whole family would get that consequence as well. The next item we are going to look at in the box is a cup of corn seeds. This represents the agriculture in ancient Egypt. Agriculture was the largest source of wealth for the ancient Egyptians. Because of the Nile River, they were able to grow many crops, raise animals, and catch fish. Once some of the crops were given for taxes, farmers could then go and sell their crops on the market. People could then sell their leftover goods to consumers and traders. It wasn't even until the latter half of the first millennium that coin currency became more prevalent in ancient Egypt. This was because of the foreigners. Before the existence of coins, they would often trade with the items they already had. The third item we are going to look at in the box is the pyramid. This pyramid represents the afterlife. Ancient Egyptians were polytheistic, meaning they believed in many gods. Some even believed that the pharaoh was a god on earth. One of the many gods they believed in told them that after they died, they would go to a new world in their afterlife. This is why the creation of pyramids and tombs started to become a very big trend in ancient Egypt. Ancient Egyptians believed that they need to be buried with all of their belongings and their finest jewelry. If they were buried with their belongings, those belongings would go with them to their afterlife in the new world. They also believed that if their family was buried in the same pyramid as them, their family would then be able to use their belongings in the new world as well. The fourth item we are going to look at in the box is eye makeup. This is one of the many inventions that ancient Egyptians created. They also created the first form of toothpaste. A lot of their inventions we still use today. One of those inventions is the 365-day calendar with a leap year every 4 years. Another invention that we see around water is the sail on a sailboat. They created this sail to help make transportation down the Nile River more efficient. Speaking of efficiency, ancient Egyptians also created the first organized labor. They created this when they were making the pyramids to help the building process run more smoothly. Ancient Egyptians also created their own writing system. Their writing system was called hieroglyphics. This was one way they were able to communicate and write down their stories. To help with the communication process, they also invented the first kind of paper made out of papyrus, as well as using dye to create different colored inks. Ancient Egyptians could then use these inks to write on the papyrus paper using hieroglyphics to explain their day-to-day lives or to communicate with each other. The fifth item we are going to look at in the artifact box is water from the Nile River. The Nile River was very important to the agriculture for ancient Egypt. Most of Egypt is made up of deserts, so it is very hot and dry in that country, which is not a good environment to grow crops. However, once a year, the Nile River overflows and floods the lands. This creates soil near the river that is conducive for growing crops and grains. The Nile River was also used for fishing. A lot of times people would go fish for food to feed their families and other people. The last item we are going to look at in our artifact box is some sand. Egypt is predominantly made up of sand and desert. Within the deserts includes geographical features such as sand dunes, mountains, and cliffs. A lot of times the deserts would also act as a barrier between Egypt and other countries because the deserts were very hot and there was a lack of water and fertile land within them. There were also mines in the deserts where precious stones and golds could be mined. Another major geographical feature of Egypt is the Nile River. The Nile River starts in Central Africa and then empties out at the top of the Mediterranean Sea. Something special about the Nile River is that it flows from the south to the north. Due to the Nile River, ancient Egypt was able to have some land that was fertile and able to grow crops. Thank you for taking this journey through our artifact box of ancient Egypt with me. I hope this makes you excited to learn even more about the ancient Egyptians and their country.